that you're trying to
Yeah.
your distance. Got it. You're distancing the you're distancing kedushin from the concept of purchasing, in a sense, because in other words, you don't normally purchase something by giving money by two foreign parties exchanging money and then you acquire it. Even though we do learn it from our rave,
Right.
but our rave is not a real purchase. It's not
No.
a purchase.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
an
commitment.
obligation. So
Right.
it comes out that it's really, we're trying to say that really it's just an obligation that's going on. And
That's interesting.
the money is just like I was saying, when you buy something for $100 and I give you a nickel now, you know, it could even be that the nickel is kesef kinyan for that land, and it doesn't even count towards the $100.
Yeah. Oh, of course, right. It's just an object that's being used to make the kinyan happen.
Yeah, but it's still called kesef. It's called kinyan kesef
Because its value
is
important in that sense.
its value is important.
Yes.
It's kesef. But the point is, we have to make this transfer of ownership, and it's on that nickel, and it has nothing to do with the purchase price.
Yeah.
So we're distancing the kinyan of kesef is just the way you do the kinyan. The actual money can go to anybody. That's almost what the Gemara is saying, because it's not a purchase.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting point in terms of like whether or not, I mean, definitely, right, already, I mean, I just remember this from all the obnoxious questions I asked in high school, right? Kinyan bia, which is, you know, asur derabanan, but is a possibility, is already like a completely unique thing to marriage, right? It already makes it a different, like this category, definitely not. And so I think maybe this is kind of like, once you've said, well, yeah, but and there's good reasons to make that asur, right? But it's like, once you say that's asur, well, how do we have another way of showing that this is different than just like purchasing a you know, I don't know, a tchotchke from the store, you know? But it's an incredible, I don't know, it's a very interesting system. I think you're right, that's being set up here but maybe if I could say this, like in the case of what you're arguing, then I think kinyan kesef is what you do in order to affect the obligations that come with marriage from both sides on it, kind of thing.
Right.
So,
and there definitely are obligations on both sides.
So Yavni just dropped out, and I think it's coming back. There we go.
Yeah, he's coming back. All right, you better start.
I'm gonna start because we only have so much time. Good.
Yeah,
that's a good start. All right, so I really just want to go through the Shulchan Aruch, see all the different cases that he brings up. Many of these are familiar from the Gemara, or from the Torah of Yosef. So I'll start reading, then maybe we'll go. Yavni, you'll read some, and so we did Aleph, but I'll do it again. So we're in Siman Kaftet in the Shulchan Aruch, Seif Aleph. All right. Homer Lisha, Hariat Mekudeshet li bedinar zeh, almanat shetach zirehu li, right? So you'll be married to me with this dinar, but you got to give it back, right? Einam Mekudeshet. That doesn't count, right? We saw that it's because maybe it looks like a kinyan sudar, and we don't want people to say that a kinyan sudar, that you can do use that to do to affect marriage, right? Kinyan sudar, of course. Interesting. As a very quick side note, I saw the Shiltei Giborim actually has a whole chiluk on this, where he says, but if he essentially gives her the kesef through a kinyan sudar and says, you know, harat mekudesh li bedinar zo, that you now got, that might work. And there's other achronim who disagree with this. It's a machloket. That's like a really subtle case of, you can use a kinyan sudar to purchase the coin, but not to actually affect the marriage.
Right.
Yeah. All right. But I'll read
I think that's just making the point.
It's
not that kinyan sudar can't have any existence when we're talking about marriage. You know, that it can, but not for the purpose of consecrating the woman.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you can use the kinyan sudar to transfer the object, but not to create the marriage. Is the difference?
Right.
Very subtle piece to it.
Right.
All right. Haga aval hisha natna leachad matana al manat leachzir la leachar 30 yom kedei lakadsha ba toch 30 v'natan la toch 30 lekidushin havi mekudeshet. But you know, she can give him like an object for 30 days in order that within those 30 days he gives it to her, right, in order to be mekudeshet. That works. All right. And Yesharim the imnatan la matana manat leachzir ve'amar la bahana azo she'at nehenet toch hazman hariat mekudeshet li have kiddushin. This is the case Rav Nachum brought this up. Like she lends him he gives her a washing machine for 30 days. And she says, but be mekudesh means the fact you get to wash your clothes for 30 days with it, not for the washing machine, but for the fact you get to wash your clothes with it. From the hana'ah you get, that counts. And this is like a big thing that's going to hang over us this whole time of like, is this hana'ah really, is that enough? Where does it play in and so forth? And also just one more comment on Aleph before we move on to Bet. We of course saw this whole thing. There's an opinion, I think it was the Bach, who said that's only if you did this whole thing in a proper Tanai format, the Tanai kaful, right? A positive and negative of what, like we get with, what are the three tribes? Chatzi Shevet Manasseh, Gad, Reuven, and Chatzi Shevet Manasseh. And others disagree. And otherwise, if you don't do a proper Tanai, that it needs to be, it only works if it's returned.
No, then you get a benefit.
Exactly.
Then for sure you're married. Because the Tanai was no good, and therefore you gave it to her as a full gift.
Exactly, the Tanai was never good, and so therefore she never had to return it essentially in the first place, and therefore it's a proper kiddushin.
Right. It's kind of a paradox.
Yeah, there are cholkim on that, but just like it's good to know the Bach's opinion there.
Right, the cholkim say no, you don't need a Tanai kaful, and that was the Tosfos that we saw.
Exactly. All right, Yavni, you want to read Bet for us?
Sure. Amra lo ten man. Rav Nachum, you said it's mana?
Maneh.
Maneh. I thought it was, okay. Oh, yeah, okay.
Maybe I said mana, but I don't know.
Anyway,
Maneh, 100.
It
Means 100, right?
Yeah.
אמרה לו תן מנה לפלוני ואת קדשני לך ונתן לו ואמר לה הרי את מקודשת לי בהנאת מתנה זו שנתתי על פיך הרי זו מקודשת. If she says give 100 to someone else, to Ploni, and I will be married, I will be betrothed to you. And he gave it to him, and he said to her, on this pleasure on the pleasure of me giving this gift according to your word, she is מקודשת.
Great.
ואם היו עסוקים באותו עניין, אף על פי שנתן סתם, בציוויה, הרי זו מקודשת. And so the Rama says, he doesn't need to say anything, the Harayat Mekudeshet, if they were already talking about getting married at that moment.
Right, which is what's the fulfillment there? I think the point is that it's as though he said Harayat Mikudeshetli, because the talk, it doesn't have to be exactly those words. And he said he wants to marry her. So
yeah,
that's the point. It's not for clarity's sake. It's for fulfilling the obligation to say those words. I think. That's
you think it's just an obligation? It just like the words need to be said somewhere, and so here they're oskin bet oto inyan, and
oskin verbally. Yeah. As I would say, that's my point. I think that's what's the idea.
So I think there's I don't remember if it comes up here, but I think there's a debate about whether her having said that is enough of an oskim beoto inyan, or whether he has to have been talking about it actively himself, right?
Yeah. If you remember, the Rama, right, earlier had told us that even if she's not part of the conversation, but she's right there for the conversation, that's enough. He seems to think it's all the man's side, right, for this conversation.
Right. Well, in this case, like, she needs to have said that for this to go through. Exactly. And so then the question is if he needs to also say something or not beforehand.
I'm guessing that per the Rama and the way he's played out so far, he'd think that he needs to say something. That the man.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree. וכל זה דווקא שהיא מתחילה לומר תן מנה לפלוני, אבל אמר לה הוא תחילה והיא אומרת תן לפלוני, לא מקודשת.
Exactly. He's missing the words here, and this is the case that we're going to get next week, right? Is the case where he starts it out and she says, no, give it to such and such, give it to Abba, give it to, or even to a Ploni, right? Neither of those cases are going to work. So, right. All right. The idea there being, right, yeah, it seems to be that, right, she's like, no, I don't want this for marriage. Give it somewhere else, put it, So
it's the language of rejecting.
yeah, Rashi uses the language of mishateh, I think, or something like that, if I remember correctly. Like she's fooling with him, or not, pushing him aside, essentially. Like, no, brushing him off. That's the good English there. So okay.
Right. אמרה לו, הלווה מנה לפלוני ואת כדי שאני לך, והלווה לפלוני, ואמר לה, הרי את מקודשת בו, הווה קידושין. It works also even if she says to, כמו במתנה. It works if she asks him to lend money to ploni, and by that to be מקודשת. אבל אם הרוויח זמן מלווה, al piha v'kidsha bo eina mekudeshet. But if she says, you already have loaned ploni money, but extend the deadline of that loan to more time, that doesn't work.
Yeah, and this is a whole question of how much does this follow the paradigm of the Arev or not. You can look in the Chokat Mechokek. I think the Taz also takes this up, if I remember correctly, where they actually disagree. But or at least they think you should be, chashash for safek kiddushin here, because maybe it works. So in the case of an isha, because she still gets, right, there's still hana coming out of this, right, that she based on what she said, the loan got extended.
But right, and this is where Josh's theory about there needing to be some transfer of something.
Yes, right, potentially that, and in that case there's no transfer of money, actually there's just an extension of a loan. But good. And just to look at the time, no, let's keep going with it. I'll read Gimel. So Amra lo tain dinar lefloni, all right, vekadesh ani lo, venatan lo, all right, vekidsha oto ploni, ve'amar la haret mekudeshet li, v'hana'at matana zo shekibalti b'tzonech, harei zeh mekudeshet. Right. So she says to him, "Give such and such to Ploni, and I'll be married to you." And he gives it, right? And then Ploni.
You said it wrong. You said it wrong. I'll be married to him. You meant to say.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. She says, give such and such. So let me get all the names straight. She says to Reuven, give Shimon money, and I'll be married to Shimon. Right. This is the case we're talking about here. And so then Reuven gives Shimon the money, right? And then Shimon marries her and says to her, right, to just kiddushin, he says to her, Haret mekudeshet li, b'hana'at of the fact that I got a matana from you by your will, that counts as mekudeshet. And we saw that this thing is gonna, the Beit Yosef takes us up with a whole question, I think starting from the Rashba, if I remember correctly, of like, wait a second, how's this different from Adam Chashuv, right? Where you have to use an Adam Chashuv. She gives money to the man, and that only counts for Adam Chashuv. And so one of the answers that's given here is that in that case, it's her money. She loses by giving him, right? And therefore needs to make it up by his Chashivut. But here, Reuven gives Shimon the money. She's not chasera anything, and therefore you don't even need an Adam Chashuv in this case. So I'll go with that explanation for why this works here, but not in the Adam Chashuv case. Why not in the her directly giving case, rather? Why you need an Adam Chashuv?
You gave another explanation, which was that, let me throw it out quickly, that because she is enjoying her fulfilling of her word through the hands of a third party, and that's different from her giving it. There's no enjoyment of me having to go and give you something.
Mm-hmm.
Then it has to be the Adam Chashuv. But here, she's enjoying the fact that her words are being fulfilled.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was a second. That was also the Beit Yosef, right? Who answered that, if I remember.
Yeah, I brought that also.
So good. All right.
Can you read Dalet? I can read Dalet.
You want?
I like that one. Amra lo helach mane vet kadesh ani lecha nitbe'er b'siman kav zayin. So that's a pretty easy one.
Yeah.
Okay. What did we say about that, though?
Good. Rav Nachum, what did we say about that? Do you remember?
I should. Helach mane vet kadesh ani lecha.
That's what we were just talking about, right?
It is the Adam Chashuv. It's only works for Adam Chashuv.
Oh, that's yeah.
Yeah. I went and looked it up. That's why I remember.
Right.
So it's
exactly that only works with Adam Chashuv. Okay, let me read the next one.
Good.
Amar la helach dinar misheli take my dinar.
Uh-huh.
V'hitkadshi and make me mikudeshet leploni. V'oto ploni asao shliach, o shelo asao shliach. V'amar la oto ploni hitkadshi li b'mana shenatan lech ploni hareze mikudeshet. So you tell me what this case is.
Good. This is actually like it's two different shitot kind of being stuck in here, if I remember correctly. But so she essentially says to Reuven, you take this maneh, right? And that will make me married to Shimon, right? So if Shimon, there's two possibilities. If Shimon made Reuven his shaliach for kiddushin, that counts potentially, then it works. Or Shimon comes to her and says, oh, you gave Reuven this money, hared mekudeshetli, through this. That counts as being she's mikudeshet in either of those cases. So,
which way is the money? The money's going.
Money's going is
from her
from
the
third party to the bride.
Reuven gives her the money, right? In this case,
and she's married to Shimon.
But she gets married to Shimon through Reuven giving her the money. She gets married to Shimon. Hopefully I said that correctly. So I want to make sure that's clarified. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Reuven gives money to Leah, and Shimon gets married to her either because Reuven was Shimon's shaliach, or because Reuven saw this happen and said, "Oh, haret mekudeshet for this." Money.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. Now I understand. Yeah, I was showing me off Misheli. I was confused about Misheli. Mm-hmm. That's really unnecessary, that word there.
Yeah. So
the point is he's just emphasizing that it's his money.
As opposed to the
Katan's money.
Yeah. Or the case where Reuven gave Shimon money to marry, so Reuven could be married to Leah. That's an obvious case, right?
I think to be medayek on the language of the Shulchan Aruch, it's
yeah. Yavni, do we lose you?
Seems like Reuven. Yeah.
We don't hear you so well, Yavni.
Say it again, Yavni. So we lost you there for a second.
Oh, I said, I think Reuven, the third party, had the intention of her being married to Shimon of Leah being married to Shimon through this action. That's what he stated from the beginning, whether or not he was the shaliach, right? So yes. It's not just some other transaction that happened.
Right. Well, he said that. He said, marry. So I like to do Aleph and Bet because I'm too dumb to remember Shimon and Levi.
Yeah.
But he says, Amar, so Aleph says to her, take this money and you'll marry Bet. Right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
He says it when he gives it to her. But
I just meant it as
married yet. She's not married yet. If it would be a shliach, in other words, the shliach, I don't know, if he would have been a shliach to marry, then he could say that he should be married that minute.
Exactly. So,
but she's not really a shliach for the marriage purpose, and he's just maybe he's a shliach to give her money, but not to actually do the marriage, because he's going to say later, "Va'amar la toploni," that money that Aleph gave you, marry me with that money.
I think we only need that in the case where he's not the shaliach. I think either he is the shaliach or he's not the shaliach, and Bet says that.
Okay. I agree. If you actually look at the Ber Haggalah, the shaliach is the Rosh's point, and and it's the second guy saying to her haret mekudeshet is the Rambam's point, and I think that they've essentially taken both of those shitot and said it's either one or the other. So, but
that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Vav. Unless there's more on Hey, there's a lot to say more on Hey, but let's we're like barely halfway done with the Siman. So I'll do Vav. Amarla hikatshi bedinar. All right. So he says to her, be married with this dinar. V'natan la mashkon ad shitena dinar. I don't have the dinar with me, so I'm giving you, this other thing is a pledge for the dinar. Eina mekudeshet. That doesn't count. All right. About Haggah. V'kol sheken im natan la shtar ala dinar. Even more so if he doesn't even give her a pledge. He just writes on a document, I owe you a dinar. That doesn't work. De lo have kiddushin. Okay. Amarla Hareat mekudeshet li bedinar v'tiske bo beguf hamashkon she'ani noten lach. But if he says to her, like, you can actually get some benefit from this mashkon, right? You in the actual goof of the mashkon, right? You can have some merit in it. That counts as for kiddushin according to the Rama.
Because what does that mean? What does that mean? Tizke beguf hamashkon. It means that doesn't mean that she's able to use it. Normal mashkon, you have to put in your safe. And
exactly.
You can't use it.
You can't touch it.
He's giving her permission to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So then she's getting a thing.
Exactly. It's. I imagine it's like, and
maybe if it gets stolen, she's chayiv.
I was wondering about that. Does she have like what, is she like some sort of a shomerit here that is a lot like like a shoel that she can use it, it's but yeah, it seems to be the case of like she now has some responsibility on it, and she can, I don't know, you can imagine like it's a book, she can read it now, as opposed to like if it's normally a mashkon with a book, you couldn't do that unless maybe it's to maintain the book or something. I think
this sif is very important because it says it's basically saying that the that it's not that she gets money. You see, because she's being in the beginning of the sif, it's as though she's getting money. She's I am giving you a dinar, but not right now. Here's the mashkon for it, but I'll give it to you. So it's not, the important thing is not that she gets something, that she's owed something, but that there is an actual transfer of money at this moment.
Exactly, which we've so far have seen as a transfer of hana essentially, and he's right now she has no hana from this, right?
Right,
is a way to put it, and that's one she taught how to see this, right? I mean, it's great I have an object, but I can't touch the object, so who cares at the end of the day? So, but good. And this is, on the other hand, we're going to see that once she has money, even if she doesn't have all the money, which is the next seif, that does work potentially, right? There's some exceptions to it, but this actually, in some ways, is both the really good writing of the Gemara, but really nice organization and writing of the Shulchan Aruch and the Tur, where these kind of cases build upon each other in a very nice way. So it's not that I should be one to critique or approve of the writing of such gedolim, but I'll say it. It's all right. With that, Yavni, you want to read Zayin?
This issue is discussed in the Gemara using different language, right? It's like I'm trying to, like, language of like the mashkon is mishu'abad to her, and like some okay. Yeah,
it's you can look, right, it's in Zayin in the Beragola, he says, right, Mema de Rava Amar Rav Nachman Sham. So it's in, I think, Kiddushin Chet or something like that, Zayin or Chet. I think Zion, I think, but so I think that's maybe how Rashi understands. I can't remember anymore, but maybe Rav Nachum remembers, but
I don't remember exactly. No.
So, all right, Yavni, you want to take Seif Zayin?
Sure. האומר לאישה הרי את מקודשת לי ב100 דינרים ונתן לה אפילו דינר אחד, הרי זו מקודשת מי שלקחה הדינר, והוא ישלים לה השאר, שזה כמו שאמר, הרי את מקודשת לי בדינר זה, על מנת שאתן לך ריש זוז שהיא מקודשת לו מעכשיו. So if he says, be betrothed to me on 100 dinarim and gives her 1 dinar, she's mikudeshet as if she takes the dinar, and it's just like, and he's required to pay her the balance, and it's just like if he said, take this, be betrothed to me on this dinar on the condition that I will pay you 200 zuz, that she is then mikudeshet from that moment when he gives the first dinar.
Exactly.
Right. In other words, even though you might have thought that by giving 100, if he said 100, he has to give 100, and he only gave 1, but that statement of 100 just means that he owes her 100. But once he gave her the money, and this goes back to that same point that there has to be a transfer, and the fact that we're just saying that the rest of it is owed. It's a separate thing. he owes her the money, but he did this transfer.
Which is generally the way Kinyan Kesef works anyway, right? It's this is
Right,
not,
exactly.
yeah. So good. And read the Ramah there. Keep going, Yavni.
והוא הדין אם חסר דינר אחד או שהיה רע, ויש חולקין. So, and that's how it works also if there's one dinar missing, and also if there's one bad dinar. And that's the opinion of the Rosh and the Ramban, and there are those who disagree, specifically the Rashba. באמת דברים אומרים, כשאמר לה ב100 דינרים סתם, אבל אם פירש ואמר לה, הרי את מקודשת ב100 דינרים אלו, והתחיל למנות לתוך ידה, ויש אומרים...
Skip the Ramah for a minute, and then we'll go back.
אוקיי. אינה מקודשת עד שישלים לה, ואפילו בדינר האחרון, שניהם יכולים לחזור זה בזה. So, and that works if you use the language of be betrothed to me with 100 dinarin, but if he said be betrothed to me with this 100 dinarin and starts counting them out into her hand, then the whole time that he's counting them out until he gets to the very last one, either one of them they're not yet betrothed, and either one of them can change their mind.
Exactly.
And the Rama adds, ויש אומרים דבחד המיני הוא כגון שאמר 100 דינרים אלו או מתחיל למנות, and the Rama adds that there are those who say that it's not fully kiddushin until all 100 have gotten to her hand with either of those cases, i.e. either if he says these 100 dinarim and hands her a stack of 99 dinarim, then she's not mekudeshet until he brings that last one, or even if he says be mekudeshet to me with 100 dinarim without saying these 100 dinarim and starts counting it out, as long as he's counting them out and she sees all of them in front of her, they can go back until they're done counting them out.
Exactly. I think that's as simple as reading that vav there, vehitchil, as an O instead of an ant. In Shulchan Aruch.
Well, that's I think that it's the Gemara is like that.
It is.
But then the Rambam combines it and says, no, it's just when you say Elu, so obviously you're going to start counting them, because what else are you going to do? You're going to start, you're going to say, I'm marrying you with exactly, $73.28. So you're going to have to show her that you're giving her that exact amount.
Yeah.
So the Rambam just sort of combines, but I think from the simple reading of the Gemara, even it seems like it's two different possible cases.
But per the Rambam, it would be if he starts counting it out, then they're actually, once he gives her the first one, it still counts. It's the first case and not their Mikudesh. There's Kiddushin is done, right? It's
wait, explain. I don't know.
If the Rambam has a case where a person says to a woman, he says stam, he just says harat Mikudeshet be mea dinarim, right? And not elu, but just mea dinarim, and he says 1, 2, 3, right? The moment he gives her the first one, yeah,
you're right. Then that's enough.
Exactly. So even if he's counting, it doesn't matter. But per the Ramah's read, and the people who read like the Ramah, like the Rosh, right? Then the moment he starts counting, that kind of is gilui dat, that that it's on these exact dinarim and not just a stam case. But good. Although we're not done. So אלא אם כן.
אלא אם כן אמר לה דינר החסר יהא עליי במלווה ונתרצתה. So we said that this marriage won't go through until all 100 have, under these conditions, until all 100 have been handed over. But if they come and they realize that he didn't actually have 100, he had 99, and he says the missing dinar will be I owe you, and she agrees to it, then it's okay. Then they
exactly.
וכן אם נמצא מנה חסר דינר או נמצא מהם דינר נחושת ולא הכירה בו תחילה, אינה מקודשת. And thus, if after the fact she notices that it wasn't actually the full 100, or there's one that's not a proper silver dinar, then and she hadn't noticed it from the beginning, then she's not betrothed.
And now skip the Ramah for a minute, read the end of the Seif.
ואם יכולה להוציא על ידי הדחק, מקודשת. But if this imperfect dinar actually can be used under duress, then then she is betrothed.
Exactly. You can, some shopkeeper will, or some money exchanger will take it. I think that's Rav Papa in the Gemara, if I remember correctly, who adds that. I think Nafik al Hak or something like that.
Right.
So I'm just proud of myself for remembering that. So I'll say it.
Yeah.
But good. Now read the Ramah.
ויכולין לחזור בהן. דאפילו בלא חזרה אינה דאפילו בלא חזרה.
There's a
right.
yesh omrim there.
ויכולין לחזור בהן, דעת רש"י, ויש אומרים דאפילו בלא חזרה אינה מקודשת, הר"ן פרק המקדשים, עד שיאמר לה אחר כך התקדשי בזה ושתקה.
Right.
And so there's a difference of opinion if like they need to actively change their mind when the transaction isn't complete for it to be not mekudeshet, or if there's really no kiddushin that happened, then they have to start again from scratch with the remaining dinar.
Exactly. So in other words, right, he counts out, gets to 99, and oops, something's missing. Rashi would say, okay, well, it's still good kiddushin as long as she doesn't say no, right? But was it the run? Yeah, the run would say it didn't count for anything at this point. So because he didn't have 100. So good. All right, Rav Nachum, you want to read Chet for us?
Yeah, just a second. You can hear me, yeah.
Yeah.
אומר לאישה התקדשי לי בכל זה, אם היה מלא מים, הרי זה מקודשת.
No,
I'm reading the wrong thing.
Yeah.
אומר לאישה התקדשי לי בדינר זה, על מנת שאשלים לה מנה. So marry me with 1 dinar on the condition that I promise to give you 99 more.
Exactly.
והיא אומרת, על מנת שתשלים לי 200. No, you have to give me 200. והלך זה לביתו, זו לביתו. And they each went home, and they just had given only, one, I guess.
One, yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly. One has been given.
They've just given one. And they didn't come to a decision about whether she was going to grant her wish. V'achar kach tavu zed zed. They sued each other.
It could just mean that they like call each other, like that they.
They requested each other.
Hmm.
Okay, v'kidshu, and they did the kiddushin. V'natan la hadinar, and now he gives the dinar.
Yeah.
Im ha'ish tava et ha'isha. If he was the first one to break down, that's what it is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. If he was the first one to, they said, well, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. And then the question is, who comes to reconcile? So if he broke down first, tava et ha'ish, ha'ish tiva et ha'isha, yasu kidivrei ha'isha, then she won, and she gets 200. V'yashlim la'matayim. V'im ha'isha tava et ha'ish, yasu divrei ha'ish. V'lo yashlim el mana. So this is very egalitarian.
It is. It's an incredible case, actually, too, right? It's like, all right, who blinks first?
It's exactly. It's probably something about human nature. It's
As I recall, there was in the Beit Yosef he brings 2 opinions. One of them is this one, and the other one is the opposite. As I recall.
I don't remember that. That's even more interesting.
Actually, it's It's
So, but he rules this. Do you remember why he rules this one? I don't remember this.
I don't remember. No, I just remember seeing that like someone had that opposite.
You see, but it can get complicated nowadays. What if the woman calls the man and says, "Come over," and then he is the first. He comes to her house, but she called him to do that.
Oh, interesting.
But I guess it's still as though she blinked first.
Yeah. It might be it's interesting how like what tovea means in terms of like right, in terms of like actual action.
I think it means they said come, let's get married. I think that's what it means.
Right. So I think it's like about the tone of voice. If like the person is like, no, don't you agree already to get married, and the other one says yeah, okay, then it's more, it goes by whoever petitioned their offer.
Yeah.
But if it's
well, like, that's okay, different. That we're not right. You see, we're talking about where like they were very short on words. These people were very stingy with words. They just said the minimum thing. They just said, come get married. But if they would say, oh, all right, I'll do what you said. Well, then that's going to be determining it.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Well, you also, I mean, maybe this is, I didn't see if anyone said there's a crazy case where they both send like a shaliach at the same time to go get the other person. You know, it's
That's where you build the Beit Mikdash.
exactly. Yeah, it's Kodesh Kodeshim in the middle,
Yeah.
but good. All right, but we have limited time still, so let's maybe I'll read Tet. All right, Haomer Lisha hitkachili bekozeh im hayem alem mayim harezo mekodeshet bo uvamash betocho. Right, so he says, he's got a cup. He says this cup, and it's filled with water. You count both the water and the cup itself. All right, as the kiddushin, they meet starful shave pruta, and they can't combine together to be shave pruta. Vim hayam malayain harezo mekudeshet bo v'lo b'ma shebetocho. Right, but if it's a cup full of wine, it's the cup itself, the kli itself, and not the wine that's in it. Vim hayam ale shemen harezo mekudeshet b'ma shebetocho v'lo bo. Right, but if it's a cup full of oil, he's doing the kiddushin with the oil, not with the actual kli. All right, this is like a incredible case, but it's
Right. It's like saying, if I give me a cup of oil, what does it mean? Does it mean my recipe needs a cup of oil, so bring me a cup of oil, or does it mean I want a cup with oil in it?
Yeah.
So I want a cup and oil.
Exactly. So this is right, of course, that we're going to see. It's only the stam case. He just says because that, right, and the kos happens to be filled with these following.
Right. He didn't say right. He said with a cup.
Yeah. All right. And
But
okay.
what is it? Is she pointing out a cup? Is there a cup on the table and she's saying that cup?
Well, she hasn't said
He's the
it.
one who's saying it. Yeah.
He's saying he picks up a cup and
right.
he says,
okay.
To me, maybe they're at a restaurant and he's got a cup of oil, he's got a cup of wine, a cup of water. He picks up one of them and he says to her, "He can she leave?" Because
what did he mean?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
did he mean?
So.
And this is the case that in the Gemara it's listed without specifying which result is connected to which material, and then Rishonim have a disagreement.
Reconcile which, and we're about to see that in the Shulchan Aruch, in fact. Right?
Sorry.
No, don't apologize, not at all. So, right, if he says because then it's full of shemen, then it's the shemen that is he's talking about. If that's not shave pruta, harezo mekudeshet besafek. Right, this is really interesting. All right, it's actually not so clear. Vim haya b'shemen shave pruta harezo mekudeshet vadai. Right, then it's vadai. All right. V'yesh cholkin. But if with water, it's with the water itself and not what's in it.
No, it's the cup.
Did I say? Oh, excuse me, bo. You have the cup. Thank you, and not what's in it. The first version was the water. Uvayayin b'meh shebetocho v'lo bo. Right, and with the wine, if it's a full wine glass, it's the wine and not the cup itself. Uvashemen o b'tzir dagim bo uvameh shebetocho. But if it's oil or fish brine, then it's the combination of the two. So two different versions of how to reconcile the cases there. Okay, 2:40. Oh, we're running out of time already. I have a chavruta in a minute, so yeah, maybe we'll stop there unless there's any final questions, and I'll let people read Yud on their own.
Good.
You good? Yud, bruchim to you. Yud is actually a good case, so people should read it about whether or not her like using language of jest in response to him and how that works. So, but all right, Tov, I'll see everybody on Monday. For Lexi's got a lot of material for us on Lamed, so it's good stuff. So,
Okay.
Did she send something out, or
she did? She sent something out.
Oh.
Yeah,
she didn't send out very much, right?
she sent out Gemara and like Tosfot and so forth, and then sent to also do the Tur Beit Yosef, if I remember correctly.
Right. So she didn't. Right.
Yeah. So
we got a sneak preview on her shiur, you're saying.
Exactly. So
are we spending more than one session on Lamed?
We are. Probably we are too. Probably.
Okay. So
okay.
All right. Cool to have a good day, everybody.
Bye.